I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers here, hosting our midweek squad show, Packers, Bears, Part 2. All the same rules apply.
Hey, this is Coach Jags. I tell you what, leadership meets adversity this week.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski. I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. And we have a special midweek squad show for you here on the Locked On Packers feed, the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. And today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Guys, we've got a new crew here. Coach Jags, of course, with us. Jeff Jagosinski, former Packers OC. But from Sports Illustrated, covering the Packers, our pal Jacob Westendorf joins us. And from Packer Report, 247 Sports, Jacob Morley also here. Guys, we've got a ton to get to today. A rivalry matchup. It's going to be cold. It's Packers-Bears. Coach, I want to start with you. As we dig in here, how much has really changed between these two teams as you look at it? I know the injuries are a big part of what's going on here. But if you're in that room game planning, how much has really changed if you're going to try and game plan this week?
I don't think very much. I don't think very much, because we talk about it every week. The standard is the standard, and this is how we're gonna prepare. We've got a lot of adversity. I mentioned in the bringing into the show, but they're going to have to deal with some adversity. And will the game planning be different? On the offensive side of the ball, depends who comes back. On the defensive side of the ball, we know that Mike is not available anymore for this week, so we're going to see.
He's in a better place.
Yeah, well, I don't know about if the fans are, but the Jeff has got his work cut out for him, because he had so much input in the defense, Micah, and how he affected every other player around him. And so I don't think that they're going to have to do as much like chipping and all that this week. The Bears on the defensive front that's going to come. Gary's got to step up. Is Van Ness back, Peter?
He practiced on Wednesday, so I mean we'll see. Okay. We'll see moving forward if he's going to be available.
Yep, and those linebackers, Cooper's going to have to do good. And Quay, I mean, all those guys. Everybody's got to step up. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see how these guys game plan it and who's going to be the #1 receiver this week.
Well, I think that a lot is going to depend on Christian Watson.
Right.
Morley, I want to throw to you here, because you had a little social media post earlier about. And maybe tongue in cheek, maybe not, about Jeff Hafley and listening to him talk and then feeling like, hey, the Super Bowl is still on. What was it about what Jeff Hafley said that had you so hyped?
I mean, he's just so impressive to listen to. I mean, if he does end up getting a head coaching job this offseason, they are going to win the press conference. They will win that. I'm telling you right now, because he is so impressive on the microphone. But you just talked to him, and I thought the
Packers anytime, by the way.
Yeah, well, he'd be great. He would be phenomenal at this.
He'd be terrific.
I just think, when he talks about being a teacher, and he talks about how he can explain stuff to guys, and before he was hired, if you guys remember, or when he was hired, that's essentially what every single player said about him, is Jeff Hafley, the teacher, and how he can get guys up to speed, how he can get the best out of his players. And man alive, he's going to have to do it this week, because he's got a slate of guys who they are not void of talent on that defense. They still have talent on that defense. And I did think it was really interesting to hear him talk about and to be asked about, you practiced a Micah-less defense for 8.5 months. How does that look? Like, can these guys, what's the recall look like? How quickly can you turn that around and make a game plan for them? And I would love to hear your input on that, because the highest level I've ever coached is high school. And we could not probably remember anything further than a week before. And so, you get to NFL players, and how is that recall and being in the building with those guys, being able to say, hey, do you guys remember August? This is what the plan was. We're going to kind of pivot to that, and we're going to attack the Bears with that plan. And I'd love to hear your take on that, just as a former NFL coach.
Well, just think of how much Micah had to learn in a week, right?
Yeah.
And just go ahead and just flip that. I mean, these guys, the defense hasn't changed. There's been some additions on how we're going to go ahead and attack people, because you could line up Micah so many different spots. But as far as like the base defense, that doesn't change from week to week. Now the game plan and what we're going to go ahead and emphasize in the game plan, that's going to be a little bit different. But as far as like the base defense, like I said, Micah had 1 week to learn that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, everybody's language is different. I always say like hola, right, and hello. It's the same thing, but it sounds a little bit different. And the defensive language, the offensive language, I mean, you can just go, hey, look, you know what, Micah, this means it's a tight call. And he'd just go like, well, that what we call that in Dallas was open or whatever, you know. So I don't think the defense is going to have that much of a problem adjusting to that. But those guys are going to be taught, or this week is being emphasized, you guys better step up. You have to step up, right?
Yeah, Dorf, this Packers defense, I think that's going to be a huge story here. They make the game sealing play, but in the second half against the Bears, they had their struggles. If you were in those rooms with Jeff Hafley, what do you think he's going to be saying? Who is he going to be saying? We need you to be the guy this week, whether it's Rashawn Gary, whether it's Edge Cooper. Like, what do you think those conversations are going to look like?
Yeah, first, I think he's telling Matt LaFleur, maybe don't go 3 and out right after we have a 17-play drive. I'll try and do better of getting us off the field during those series. But, you know, I've kind of likened it to the scene from Moneyball where Brad Pitt's talking about replacing Jason Giambi with replacing Micah Parsons. I'm telling you, we can't do it. And you can't. Micah Parsons is one of one. If you're replacing him, it's with Myles Garrett. And Green Bay's not getting Myles Garrett here in the next couple of weeks. So I think, the big circles are on Micah's replacements. So Rashawn Gary, you know, he was supposed to be the alpha dude on the team, like when we were talking about back in August. This was a guy who, you know, the Packers have always spoken very highly of, and he doesn't have a tackle for loss or a sack since they played against Aaron Rodgers. That was in late October. That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Lucas Van Ness, you're a first-round pick. I know you're kind of dinged, but can't really hear that anymore. You know, that's the time for being dinged is over. We don't have that built-in margin for error like we had when Parsons was available, is probably what Hafley's saying to him. And then Edgerrin Cooper, I think you mentioned, is kind of the other one of, he was a pass rushing demon a year ago and really good at chasing down opposing quarterbacks. And the only one who really, oddly enough, made him not look very fast was Caleb Williams, who they're going to face on Saturday night. I was curious how they were going to change the way they attacked him. I remember saying to the people that I was watching the game with on Sunday that I thought they would put Parsons on the right side, or Caleb Williams is right side. So when he rolls to his right, it's Parsons chasing him instead of Gary or Van Ness or something like that, with that being a potential wrinkle. But obviously now they're not going to be able to do that. I do wonder if they're going to try and just kind of keep the rabbit in the pocket, so to speak, this week, and not full-fledged mush rush like they did against Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson a year ago, but something similar to that. Because if you do, it's kind of been shown over the year and 14 games, if you make Caleb Williams play within the pocket, that's not as good. When he gets out to his right, he's really good. He's really scary. It gets kind of chaotic. But when he's in the pocket trying to play quarterback, for lack of better phrasing, there are some struggles.
And part of that is because he's not 6'4". Like, there is just a built-in part of this where, like, if you're a smaller quarterback, and he's not small, but he's a smaller quarterback, that's just part of the built-in problems of seeing over a 6'4", 330-pound offensive lineman. Coach, I want to pull this out of the chat and throw this at you, because we have someone saying, you know, stepping up is what everyone says. Right. But at a certain point, guys just are, like, Darian Kennard can't play like Zach Tom. Right. And, you know, Matthew Golden may eventually be able to play like Christian Watson, but probably not tomorrow. So as a coach, how do you have to work around those deficiencies, understanding like, hey, look, if Evan Williams is not going to play, maybe you can play Javon Bullard and Nate Hobbs slides into the slot, and you're going to have to play a bunch of backups. Is that more on scheme? Is that like, how do you figure out how to maximize those opportunities?
Well, you know, all those guys in that, let's just say the offensive line room, all those guys are in the same room, and they're getting taught the same way. They're hearing the same language, they're seeing the same coaching points. Yep. And those guys, like, they may not be as good as Tom, but he's got to be as best as he can be that week, right? And I think that they'll go ahead and take the 6th offensive lineman. That's been good for us for the last, I don't know, month or so. I think they're going to be able to do that to go hide some deficiencies.
There's going to be deficiencies. I mean, like, that's just the reality. Like, you're going to have to hide some deficiencies here, guys. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is the injuries, of course. Micah Parsons not going to be a part of this. Dorf, like, if you could just pick one of Watson, Tom, or Evan Williams to suit up on Saturday, and that gives the Packers the best chance to win. Ooh. Which of those 3 guys would you just like, I'm going to magically abracadabra, you're going to play?
Yeah, I think it's Evan Williams because of Chicago's run game. And with Chicago's run game, Evan Williams was talking about how, football is imperfect and you got to everybody's drawn up to be in a certain gap, but your job as a 2nd or 3rd level run defender is to kind of make the guys in front of you right, even if they do something that wasn't necessarily right. And one of the big reasons Green Bay beat Chicago the first time around, Chicago's run game is methodical, but it's also explosive. And the longest rush they had individually was 9 yards. So if you can hold that run game to not being able to just gash you over and over and over again, Evan Williams it doesn't have the sex appeal of the Xavier McKinney 8 interceptions or whatever it was that he had a season ago. But Evan Williams, Javon Bullard is another big part of this too. But just as far as their ability to play in the run game is something that plays off of, and had Green Bay's pass rush been able to ever reach maybe its full form, we never really saw that full group of Parsons at full tilt, Gary Van Ness healthy, and Devontae Wyatt healthy as well. Somebody was dinged at one point or another. But that would have played really well off of those things, because those run plays that went, 15, 25 yards are now 6. And that's a long run in this case. So Watson's great. I think that, I do think he's going to be the one who ends up playing on Saturday. And he torched the Bears the first time around. But Green Bay has some built-in potential replacements, right? Jaden Reed is back. Matthew Golden was their leading receiver on Sunday. And with Zach Tom, they're not playing the Denver Broncos. So I think Darian Kennard could hold his own against Chicago's front, which frankly doesn't get after the passer all that well, despite spending a lot of money on that defensive line. So I think the answer is Evan Williams.
Dorf, I cannot believe what you're saying right now. I can't believe it. This guy has, these words have come out of his mouth. Anyone under 300 pounds on the football field does not matter. And he goes with the smallest guy on that list.
It's because of no. It's because of the guys who weigh 300 pounds on the other team.
Okay. I think it's Zach Tom. I do. And I think like what we talked about with the receivers, I do think a lot of the stuff goes through Christian Watson. But, and a lot of the narrative this year has been, hey, Tucker Kraft went down. They got to find their identity. And a lot of that has been Christian Watson, right? But some of that overlap, I don't think it might be a little bit of fool's gold, just because I do think Jordan Love is a really, really good quarterback, and they still have good wide receivers. And so good quarterbacks with good wide receivers typically put up numbers, even without Christian Watson. But Dorf, as you would like to say, quarterbacks can't complete a pass on their back, right? I do think, like, I do agree. I don't think Chicago
did do it like once, but
he might have.
I think Jags was coaching for that.
but losing, I think the Tucker Kraft stuff, that's been awful. They have had to kind of reinvent themselves, but I think the solidification of this offense has been more Tom getting healthy and them being able to slide Sean Ryan into center, and he looks, I mean, no disrespect to Elton Jenkins, but he looks like a better player than him right there. Anthony Belton kind of solidifying stuff at right guard. And so now what's that going to look like without Zach Tom, with a rookie right next to him, mind you, a rookie that has played tackle his entire career. Now he's playing right guard next to a center who's a guard, right? So you have all this stuff, and I just think Zach Tom was kind of the guy that solidified all of that, the veteran presence that was out there with those guys. Anybody that's played football, watched football, any of that knows that the offensive line is very much a sum of its parts. And when you lose a player like that, everybody's going to get worse. And so I think that's going to be the big test this weekend. Thank God they're not playing the Broncos again. And thank God they are playing the Bears. But if Darian Kennard can go out there and hold up at right tackle, I think the Packers win this game. because they can put up points. And I think the defense is going to be fine. So that cracked me up that you went with like the guy that not only 300 pounds, but he's probably under 200 pounds. So that's wild to me.
Coach, do you have a dog in this fight? Is it one of these three guys that you feel like, hey, they got to have him?
I think, when you said Tom, and then you made a comment. It was a great comment, Jacob. It was about like who's helping out Belton at right guard, right? Now you got the center and him. That's who's helping him, right? I think that's one of the reasons they got him flipped right there rather than outside. And when you're playing a guard, you're not on an island very much like a tackle would be, right? So I think the offensive line will be fine. I really do. I mean, Tom's a really, really good football player, but I mean, hey, the other guys got to come up and produce.
It's funny because this is why these squad shows are really fun, because Dorf said a name that I was not expecting, and obviously Morley was not expecting that either. and then Morley said a name that I would not have. I think the answer is Christian Watson. I think if Christian Watson plays, I kind of don't care what else is going to happen, because I don't think the Bears have any answers for Christian Watson. And so if he plays, I think they're going to score between 26 and 35 points. And Jeff Hafley, I trust to figure it all out. We'll dig into more of this. We're going to get into a group chat that Coach was not involved in, but we're going to get Coach's input in all of that, because we got another group chat on the channel today. Sorry, Brandon. Brandon not with us today. He's with his family. It is the holiday season. That's okay. We got more on the other side here on our Locked On Packers midweek squad show. Ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't quite match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances. Because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Seeing all your spending in one dashboard makes it easier to understand where your money is going. I like how Rocket Money automatically builds budgets based on past spending. It keeps you on track without overthinking it. Take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, we're back here, Locked On Packers, a squad show, a midweek squad show live. And we like to thank everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day, and the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. All right, guys, we are going to go into the group chat a little bit, and I may or may not have invited the two Jacobs specifically so we could keep this segment, just because we have our own group chat as well. And I offered in the group chat, guys, a low stakes conspiracy theory. And I can't wait to spring this on Coach. That 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, I guess it was, we saw Jordan Love with sleeves against the Minnesota Vikings in a game that was like cold, but not that cold by Wisconsin standards. And then he's sleeveless the next 2 weeks. And it just so happened that Minnesota game was right after what game, guys? When Jordan Love hurt his shoulder. And my theory, Coach, is that Jordan Love was wearing a big shoulder brace for that game and didn't want anyone to see it. And so he's got the sleeves. So, by the way, the two Jacobs agreed with me. I want to start with you, Coach, because you're not in that conversation. What do you think of my low stakes conspiracy theory?
I think it's a conspiracy theory for sure. Well, he's wearing a long sleeve shirt because he's got a shoulder brace on.
Yeah.
And that's it, huh?
I don't know if I believe that, but it's like, I was just like, it crossed my mind because it seemed weird. Like he wore the sleeves and then didn't the next 2 games. I was just like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. You know what? I don't remember. I don't know if Aaron wore sleeves a lot. I don't think Brett wore them very often.
Rodgers definitely did.
Rodgers wore them a lot.
Later in his
Rodgers wore them a lot.
Again, I didn't know.
Turtleneck.
Turtleneck.
Oh, right. when the turtleneck was on, things were happening.
Yeah,
it
was a white sleeve. I remember there was a Niners game in 2013 where it was frigid, freezing cold, and Kaepernick was San Francisco's quarterback. It was a wild card playoff game, and Rodgers looked like an Eskimo when the game started because he had like the little face mask thing and everything like that. I mean, it was really cold that given day. But there is a a pride thing. I remember once upon a time, Jags, I don't know if you were part of this or not, but the receivers used to say, especially during that Rodgers era, they never wore sleeves. So like Jordy and Driver and all those guys that came through. They never
Driver
did.
was vehemently anti-sleeves.
Because he said it made him fumble. It was the old I'm on green pads thing, the leather pads. He said when it was wet, that's what helped make him fumble.
You know, I'm on green only carried the ball in one hand. He never carried it in both.
Yeah, he carried it in his left hand. Yeah,
always. That was crazy. And they could never break him with that. I remember that. But I think, you know, like the sleeves really sends a message. You know, it's like maybe it's pseudo toughness, but you got to be damn tough not to wear sleeves in the cold weather, you know, and it kind of sends a message like the cold weather doesn't matter to us. And that's kind of the theme that you get when the offensive lineman does it and everybody else does it. I don't know. It just shows a toughness, I think.
Well, like
I think this is the fewest sleeves we've seen on a team in a while. Like I just feel like the love Packers, they've whatever. I don't know if it's just because it's a bunch of young guys. Like the older guys are kind of like, yeah, okay, like we don't have anything to prove. But like the young guys, it seems like all the young guys want to prove something here.
Well, on the other show that Jordan Love was on last week, they asked him about the sleeves, and he's like, absolutely, you can't wear sleeves. And so that brought that up in my mind too, Peter, because I almost tweeted something when that was out. I was like, oh man, he's wearing sleeves. That's kind of weird. I wonder if he's concealing something. Not that like with Coach. Not that it matters, right? It's not like the other team's not aware that Jordan is dealing with the shoulder injury and they know which one it is and all that stuff. But I do think it's interesting. And I think the other thing that's interesting about the injury is the fact that no one's really talking about it because he's played so well, right? Yeah. You know, Baker Mayfield's dealing with the same injury right now, that sprained AC joint in a non-throwing arm. They did a whole segment on Sunday Night Countdown talking about how tough he is and how hard that is to go through. With Jordan, it's really just been like, yeah, I did that. I also broke my hand, you know, in the preseason as well, but it has not slowed me down whatsoever.
That was a big thing for Justin Herbert too, because he wore that bionic, like Thanos glove on his hand.
Yeah, the Darth Vader glove.
A couple weeks. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting too because Brett Favre really set the standard for that, right? I mean, he is him. Cal Ripken, who else? You know, as like I think it's like
list. That's it.
Like tough guys. And so I remember with Aaron Rodgers when he first started playing, that was such a big deal to him. Was I want people to know that I'm tough too. Like I'll play through injuries. He had a sprained shoulder in his throwing arm against Tampa his first year as a starter, and he didn't miss a game. And so that's I think the beginning of that of like, hey, I'm willing to play through this stuff. I'm going to be out there for my guys. And I think, you know, kudos to Jordan for kind of picking up that mantle and carrying it. But I don't feel like he's getting as much, you know, credit or publicity or anything as some of those other guys when they were willing to do it.
I can tell you, Zach,
I think that's true, but also that's true. Like I tweeted this out earlier today. It seems weird to me, like for whatever reason, Jordan Love and Caleb Williams, the two quarterbacks in this game coming up on Saturday, they just turn people into babbling buffoons. I don't understand, like whatever, like good and bad. And I don't quite understand it. So Jags, I'm gonna swap this group chat thing. You and I and Brandon had a conversation in our group chat right after the Watson injury. And you asked a question that I'm going to get the Jacobs input on. What Coach asked was, how much impact does one guy have? So Dorf, from your perspective, because I know you've done some reporting on the injury, you said you expect him to play on Saturday. How much impact does Christian Watson have, especially in a game like this where you think you're going to get man coverage and these heavy blitz looks?
Yeah, not to sound like Ross Uglum, but like it's an immense
especially
impact.
Since he said he didn't want to come hang out with us on the show.
Right, no kidding. What a jerk. But no, the Packers offense, it's been proven over the 4 years that Watson's been here. They are just significantly better when he's on the field versus when he's not. He has a gravitational pull to him, stretching the field, so he pulls safeties away from everybody. And sometimes, like the Packers, what I really was encouraged by over the last couple of weeks was moving him inside the formation, you know, the number two in a trip set, or the slot receiver in a trip set. And the touchdown that he scored, the second one against Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Laundry's still on the field in case you guys were wondering. I did look earlier, but that was a RPO where that's a play where it might go to Watson, Or, in the past, when Watson was only playing the boundary, now we're talking maybe Jaden Reed, maybe Dobbs is the guy who's in there, and nothing against Reed, a little less so, but nothing against Romeo Dobbs, but just not his game. Not an explosive receiver. Dobbs catches that pass for 10 yards and a first down. Christian scored from 43 yards out. Like, that one guy makes things. And Tony Romo talked a lot on Sunday, but when one of the things he said was, oh my God, like one of my buddies said, he just talks to fill air. Like, he can't stand the sound of silence or something. I don't know what the deal is, but he talked about how the speed element isn't there to kind of force the defense's respect like it was early in the game. You saw it. I mean, Green Bay scored 23 points prior to Watson's injury, 3 points after he was out of the game. Now, that's not entirely because of him. Some of that has to do with other injuries. And once Denver has a lead in the, what do they call them? The orange rush, like that pass rush can pin its ears back. Now you're asking, and they did. And once you can do that, I mean, that's where it's like, Jordan Love choked or whatever. It's like sometimes the other team you just played, I think LaFleur said this on Monday, you just played right into their hands. They have the lead. They're at home. They have a dominant pass rush. And we have a backup offensive tackle playing right tackle right now. I don't care
who the rookie right guard and, all of it.
I don't care who the backup is in that spot. He could be the best backup in the NFL. He's the backup for a reason in that spot. Yeah. But to go full circle and answer your question, how much impact does that one guy have? Christian Watson has a lot of impact, and I think you can hear almost two of them. Gutekunst, LaFleur, Stenovich, his receivers coaches, his teammates, all that stuff. They love this guy, and they speak so. He'll never be the fantasy football number one wide receiver because he's just never going to get 120 targets in a season, but he's really good, and Green Bay might be able to get him for like a below market value contract extension again here this upcoming offseason.
Morley, you want to weigh in?
No, I mean, I agree with everything that Jacob just said when you talk about and the term gravitational pull really is kind of what you do to describe him. But, what he can do in the run game as well, I think he's their best, run blocking wide receiver. We had his brother Trey on our podcast a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how he's up to like 230, 235 and is still running, 20 plus miles per hour. And so you just get that type
Christian
of guy.
Is up to 230?
Yeah.
He's
allegedly
big. I can tell you he's big. I don't know if it's 230, but he's big. Like he's
go look at his rookie year stuff and go look at him now.
Terrell Owens was 230. He doesn't look like Terrell Owens to me.
He's getting close though. He's getting close. I think because he's so lanky. But in any case, sidebar.
He's always been he's always been
when he was like a sophomore at North Dakota State the first time I saw him live, and I was with Uglum. And this was sophomore or junior year. I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was when NFL scouts started to really notice him. And, you start looking at guys the different way when you're like, okay, the NFL is interested in this guy. Why? And because I go to Ross, I'm like, this guy's like 6'4", 175. Like he goes, no, dude, he's like 205. And I'm like, what? And just some of those, it's but some of those lanky guys, it just kind of hides in them. But I do want to ask, this sparked in my head when Jacob was talking, just kind of about the end of that game and how the wheels fell off completely. And I want to ask Coach, just because there's a human element to the NFL that I think a lot of people, we just don't get to see. And the human element of that situation is, okay, Christian Watson's hurt. We don't know how hurt he is. We know that he left the stadium in an ambulance. And this guy just got back from an ACL. Like, as a teammate, you're gutted. Like, you feel sick for that guy. Yeah. Oh, and then on top of that, Micah Parsons is down, and it doesn't look good. Yeah. Like, just the human side of it from a coach's perspective and a player's perspective, I know the coaches are going to say, you got to find a way. You got to find a way. You got to be able to get over that, all that stuff. But how heavy does that weigh in your mind when you're standing there on the sidelines trying to get a win?
Well, it'll deflate you, especially when you get like droves of injuries. Like, here's my top offensive guy going down, and here comes Parsons, he's going down. So yeah, the coaches' answer is like everybody's got to step up, but there is a letdown on that, because the game is a very, very emotional game, and you can see that when those guys are playing. It's very, very emotional. You could just see it from the beginning of the game, how emotional it was, and the brawl and everything, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So
Coach, when Parsons got hurt, like the game, they always say the game doesn't stop for anybody, but that game stopped when Parsons' knee blew up. Like guys are coming over, dapping him up and everything. There's certain guys that just get that level of respect for stuff like that. The game literally stopped when he went out.
I'm not sure I've ever seen opponents go over and dap up or just make sure a Packer player is okay faster than like players did for Micah Parsons. Like I've never seen it.
He garners so much respect from everybody, and that just kind of tells you.
I was talking to, this is apropos of nothing, but I was talking to James Rapine, who's our Locked On Bengals host, off air. And he was saying he was talking to Zach Taylor, the Bengals coach, about the game planning. And he was just like, God, I'm so glad we don't have to game plan for that guy again. And it was just like one of those things. And that, like, I think Jeff Hafley is going to be able to put something together here just as we pivot a little bit. But the loss of having that field tilter coach, of having every offensive coordinator the Packers go against has got to worry about where number one is at all times, and the amount of space that takes up in your brain, in your game plan all week, going, we got to worry about one. 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 That is now gone.
Yep.
Like Dorf said, you replicate him in the aggregate. You can't replicate that in the aggregate. You just cannot do that.
No. And the thing is, how he affected the other players, though. I mean,
right.
It elevated, and the great ones elevate all the players around him. And the thing I thought that Hafley did such a great job with him is they didn't play him just at one spot. They played him on the right side. They play him on the left side. They play him off the ball rushing. And they play him over the guard, down over the guard, right? And what you try to do is you try to get your best player, just like if you're thinking like, remember in grade school, let's get your best player on the worst player. The worst player when I was growing up, the guy's name was Bruce Glish. And everybody picked on Bruce Glish.
Poor Bruce. What?
I know,
Come on, Bruce.
Bruce is out there, so let's go after him. But it's no different, guys. I mean, it's just who are the best matchups. And I thought Jeff did a great job on moving him all over the place.
Well, this is kind of a half-baked thought, and I'm just thinking here. There's no silver lining. There's no positive of losing Micah Parsons at all. But you look at like, hey, when you call up this AAA pitcher to the MLB, you haven't really seen him, don't really know what his stuff is. Like, how much, if at all, is Chicago having to look at now this game plan and say, okay, how much are they going to change? Do we game plan for the same defense now that Micah's not there, or do we try to counter and anticipate what they're going to do without Micah there? And so it's there might be a short term, like what they call the dead cat bounce, where there is a short term, like, hey, we might be able to kind of catch them off guard on a thing or two in this game. And in a game like this, that's massive. It's going to be physical. It might come down to a play or two on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm interested to see that. Like I said, I would rather just have Micah. But if there were any positives, they might be able to kind of scheme some stuff up that Chicago's not expecting.
I think too, we saw, like Coach mentioned this, and it's been talked about here too. Like the Packers planned to not have Micah Parsons for 9 months of the offseason. Like from January until late August, Micah Parsons was not a member of the Green Bay Packers. And I think we have to remember that part of this. And so, yes, you got to dust some things off. And Morley, you asked Coach about, like how much recall can you get back to those things? But like Jeff Hafley remembers it. That's really all that matters. And so then this week you can go in and say, hey, remember when we were going to play a bunch of cover 2 and we were going to run simulated pressures and do kind of that? Like they know what to do. We saw that last year. Like the stuff they did last year, I think is a lot of the stuff they're going to do this year as they try and figure out life after Parsons. Like these are professionals.
That defense was really good, especially. I know you made that point.
Statistically better last year than this year.
Yeah, and shut down like Philadelphia's offense didn't do much of anything in the postseason against them. They scored 28 or more in every other game after that. Like, I get it. Like, I remember being in the locker room with Parsons after the first game of the season, and you've heard the stuff about Parsons, and until you see the guy and everything, you don't know that whole thing about elevating those around him and everything like that. The great ones like that are a presence. Charles Woodson was that way. Like everyone around, when he spoke, the whole room stopped. When Micah Parsons speaks, that whole room stops, and they understand how good he is. And I don't want to kind of, make that seem like it's not a big deal that he's not going to play. But last year's defense, like you've said, Peter, was really good. And it's the same, the same corners that everybody, and trust me, there's plenty of ammo there after last week's game, especially, but the same corners everybody was complaining about this year where they were complaining about last year, the same defensive line that was kind of up and down in terms of pass rush and everything like that. They still found ways to get, if Green Bay's offense is able to play at all against Philadelphia, maybe the Packers are going to Detroit in the second round of the NFC playoffs last year. We'll never know because that didn't happen, but there is,
and because the Commanders beat Detroit.
Well, that was in the second round. If Green Bay had beaten Philadelphia, they would have gone to Detroit.
Oh, right. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. I'm with you. We're going to talk more about the Bears and this matchup coming up next on our Locked On Packers Squad Show. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is at its best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust accordingly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. The Packers 1.5-point favorites in Chicago on Saturday night, but only slightly more minus odds in terms of the juice that you got to lay to pick the Packers on the money line than the Bears. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, we're going to get to our extra points, our score predictions, all that good stuff, but we got to dig in more to this matchup. And Coach, one of the things I wanted to ask you about here was we saw the Packers use 6 offensive linemen against the Bears. A ton, really. I mean, it was a significant part of the offensive game plan. And then against the Broncos, they didn't really pull it out. Part of that is because you lose Zach Tom in the first half, and you can't really get to some of that stuff. So is Matt LaFleur going, hey, maybe we got to get Jordan Morgan ready to play that 6th offensive lineman? Maybe he's your right tackle, and you play Darian Kennard. Like, is that something that you think they can just get right back to, even if Zach Tom can't go?
I believe you can. Here's the thing about that extra offensive lineman. It's not like he's going to be uncovered. He's always going to be covered, and he's going to be covered with an inside technique, an outside technique, or head-up technique. It's not, you can't, that's what that position is going to be. So, I think they can do that, and I think they can be really, really effective with it. I really do. And, they're going to have to run the ball this week to be successful. Jacobs, I saw that he hadn't practiced these last 2 days, with his knee. So, but I think they're going to have to be able to run the ball to be effective offensively this week.
He said if it's up to him, he's playing, whatever that's worth. But the first time that they used that,
he has said that before and not played, for what it's worth.
He's not in charge. But this week it'll be interesting to see how that works. But the 6 offensive linemen, they were really successful with it the first time. I don't have the numbers. I know that's kind of Peter's deal, but just from the naked eye and kind of rewatch stuff, like the way that Chicago treated every 6 offensive line package like it was a guaranteed run, like especially early in the game. There was a play action pass they ended up hitting to Josh Wiley for about 20 yards down the field. That was in a 6 line package. And I think if Watson's able to play, you can line up 6 offensive linemen, treat it like 11 personnel, and have Watson, Reed, and Golden on the field, or even Dobbs, whoever. Now you got a bunch of fast guys against, are they going to play big against a 6th offensive lineman? Or are they going to play small because you got all those fast guys on the field? I think that's something that Green Bay could really, really toy with here this Saturday against Chicago if they're able to get it, even if it has to end up being Jordan Morgan as the 6th guy.
I was going to ask you about that, Coach. Have you ever seen 6 offensive linemen with 3 receivers?
Yeah. What we would do is we would call it, we've done that before. We did it with, God dang it, what was that kid's name? We used to be called U72.
Kevin Barry.
U71. Kevin Barry used to do it, but with
U71.
with three receivers though. So
No,
it's
he was
basically
always
like
on,
jumbo
it was on
11.
the goal. It was on the goal line. It was on the goal line, but in short yardage. But we use that a lot. I remember using that a lot. But having it
I think
with three receivers.
To Dorf's point, like to have it with three receivers, you really put the defense in a bind there because it's like, okay, with three receivers, are you gonna play nickel against a sixth offensive lineman, or are you gonna play base, or like how are you gonna counter with that? Like that, I think that creates a lot of potential matchup advantages for the Packers, and they just, I don't know that they were quite prepared to have Jordan Morgan play right tackle or what. I'm not sure why they decided to go so away from that. I think they probably just thought they could throw against the Broncos. I'm not sure. Morley, is that like, do you think they can just kind of transplant game plans kind of regardless of who's playing against the Bears, given the way this Bears defense looks?
No, I don't. But I do think what they can do if they want to bring out those six offensive linemen, it's interesting that they've had Kennard and Morgan repping at right tackle, and I will be interested to see what that looks like when they actually, and if they actually bring that in, and will it be Morgan as the tight end in that formation, or will it be Morgan at right tackle with Kennard still playing the tight end because that's more what he's done all season? So I think it'll be interesting. I just think it's harder to replace Zach Tom than that, but we'll see. And the thing that always gets me about these offensive formations is offense is always about putting defenders in conflict, right? And you're talking about, what do we do if we bring three wide receivers out here in this formation, especially when they've been viably able to pass out of that as well and run the ball. And then you throw in a Christian Watson who does block damn near like a tight end, but can run like a gazelle, right? So I think like you talk about his value to this offense and stuff and what he can bring in those formations. I hope they try. And back to your original point, can they just transplant a game plan? I don't think they can, because I don't think it'll be as good. I mean, that's why you have your starters as your starters. I think they can try, and they may find a lot of success with it, but I don't think it's going to be as effective as it has been in the past.
Coach, when you have this quick turnaround, like you did all the scouting work, you played the game, you have that tape. How much of this is just sort of like asked and answered? Like we kind of did this. We kind of know what the situation is. Like there has to be a fine line as a coach, I imagine, of, well, let's stick with the stuff that worked without trying to overthink. Well, they know we like to do this, and so now we're going to do this, and so now we're going to do this, and they do this, and we're going to do this, and like overthinking the other pieces of that. That's every divisional game, I guess, but it's rare that you have it where you have one game in the middle. Like that makes this weird to me. So how much of this is just like, we can take everything we saw that week, Bears week, the prep, and then the game, and transport it to this week?
I think a lot of it, Peter, and here's why I say that, because your base offense is what your base offense is. You're going to go into every game with that, right? And there used to be a term like to go ahead and it's the same thing, but it looks different. We used to say it's the same girl, different dress. That's how we used to say it. It's like, we're going to still do what we're going to do, but we may dress it up a little bit, but we're going to still run the same things we always run. You see it every week. You know, that LaFleur, he's got his base stuff that he likes to do. So I don't think it's going to be much different at all. You know, I think Watson's going to make a big difference what they're going to do in the passing game, if he's there or not there. So that's going to be a big factor, I think.
Dorf, if Watson can't go, who is the guy that can maybe not fill the role specifically, but then can be the guy in the passing game to be that security blanket against this Bears defense?
Jaden Reed, I think, is, Jacob Morley always talks to me about building. I said that like he's not here, but Morley always talks to me about like building the plane out of stuff. Green Bay with their offense as presently constructed, you're building your run game, that plane obviously out of Josh Jacobs. But when you get into the passing game, it's number 9 and it's number 11. And if 9 can't go, then 11 has to be the one who's kind of the focal point. And he kind of was against Chicago. They made a point to get him the ball early. And then I always say that your money downs go to your money players. On that final drive, the pass that they completed for a chunk was to Jaden Reed for, I think it was about 15, 16 yards or something like that. But you saw the first time these two teams met, Chicago, their middle of the field defenders are vulnerable in those spots. Bo Melton, touchdown, not out of the boundary. Christian Watson's touchdown, not out of the boundary. And neither one of them were out of the boundary. They're running away from slot corners like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who I like him. I think he's a good player. He wears out his welcome everywhere pretty quickly, so figure out when that's going to be. But that's not his strong suit. If you're going to ask him to run one-on-one with a receiver like one of those guys, you're going to have a bad time. Kevin Byard's had a renaissance year in Chicago. He's not running with Christian Watson. He's not running with Jaden Reed. The speed of Chicago's secondary, or lack thereof, I think is something that is Green Bay's biggest advantage in this particular game. So I think that's Jaden Reed. And last week, the leading receiver was Matthew Golden. I think you could see more opportunities for him this week as well. I do wonder, I don't know if they'll ever fully do it, but is Romeo Doubs kind of starting to find his way toward getting phased as out of the offense as you can be at this point? He has like 80 yards receiving or something like that since the calendar turned in November. It's not great.
Morley, I need you to get involved here on the receiver thing, because that is something that the three of us talk in the group chat all the time. Matthew Golden, Romeo Doubs, like we are constantly trying to parse who's getting what targets when and why.
Well, I think the way they've built this, roster of wide receivers, there's guys that do different things well. We do talk about like, hey, in a passing offense, and I know Matt will roll his eyes at this, will puke if you talk about wide receiver one, but there are route concepts that are designed to go to a certain route versus what coverage you're seeing. So some of that stuff is you want to put your best player kind of in that money route, and they do that, and they're lying if they say they don't. And I think with Christian back, he's your best man beater. Dontavian Wicks is your other man beater. Jaden Reed is probably one of the best zone beating receivers in the National Football League. And then Romeo is just kind of always healthy. And that's kind of what I don't say that to disparage Romeo Doubs.
And he's there, is what you just said.
He's a good football player, but there are guys in, it's just one of those things. And I think we've talked about this even in the group chat and maybe even on the podcast, where, Romeo is the type of player that he's kind of been who he is since he got to the league, which is good. Like, you're a better football team with 87 on your football team. Don't get me wrong. But when you have other really talented players like a Matthew Golden, like a Christian Watson, like to some degree, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, they're going to eventually pass that guy as far as like, hey, who do I want the ball going to? And to credit to Romeo, like he has been available. Like when these guys get dinged up, when they're down, when they're up, Romeo has kind of always been the constant, but they do. And it looks like they're going to have everyone available to them this Sunday. So like to your point, Jacob, at what point do you start saying, okay, well, you're wide receiver 4 or 5 now, because we want to run this stuff through other guys? I don't know if that's the case or not, but that's just my opinion on it. The other thing that you talked about, Jacob, was the lack of speed in the Chicago secondary. We've been saying it all year, and I'm willing to say it now. I have not said it all year. I have not been one of the people to say it all year, but I'm going to say it this week. I think this is the week Matthew Golden has his game, because I think they cannot run with – I don't think they can run with him. I think Christian showed that on 2 weeks ago, and I think with the shoulder, I don't know how much of it they're going to build around 9. And I think Zero is going to have that opportunity to kind of go out there and be the guy to catch that slant with an opportunity to take it 43 yards to the end zone. And so I think this will be the game, and it would be so sweet and so Packers-Bears too. It would make too much sense for Matthew Golden to be the guy to go out there and kind of shred the Bears, where the Bears have been doing a lot of talking about Luther Burden III being the better receiver. And don't get me wrong, Peter.
By the way, he has not practiced the last 2 days, so we're not even sure he's going to play in this football game.
But we were in the group chat big fans of Luther Burden.
We were
like his game a lot. But now one's a Packer, now one's a Bear. And so this is the way things have typically gone. And it typically, when you flip that coin, it goes up green and gold. And I think Matthew Golden is going to kind of assert himself in this game and really have his breakout game this week against the Chicago Bears.
Brandon, I think you make some really good points. Our boy Brandon, he's golden. He goes, how come we can't have?
Yeah,
that sounded like Brandon right there.
I'm so glad you jumped in there, because what I was about to say, Coach, was that I saw you smile when he said this is the Matthew Golden game, and I was like, this has got to be the 15th time on this show.
Yeah.
And this time we mean it.
Matthew Golden
We mean it.
breakout game.
Perfect.
All right, we're gonna give your extra points. We're gonna give you score predictions as we wind down here. A Locked On Packers squad show, midweek squad show here with a cast of thousands.
Yeah.
All right, we're back here. Locked On Packers, the squad show. Coach Jags, Jacob Westendorf, Jacob Morley joining us this week. Brandon Snide is out with his family because it is the holiday season. And guys, something we do, the Jacobs, something we do every week is something called an extra point. Just something that we want to throw out, something that has been on our mind, maybe something that has been bothering us. And I'm going to start so that you can get a chance to get your thoughts here in order. And Coach, I'm going to throw this at you, and then I'm going to get yours.
Okay.
I got this great stat from our pal Ben Fennell over. He covers games and does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. He's a film grinder. He's a really smart football dude. Per Next Gen Stats this year, Coach, imagine this: cover 2 this year in the NFL, 29 touchdowns around the league, 47 interceptions against cover 2. Someone's got to call a relative of Monty Kiffin, I guess, and see if they can get him on the horn here, because cover 2 and particularly the non-traditional Tampa, where maybe you got a corner playing deep half, or you rotate into, the safeties coming down, playing the flats, and the corners are jetting out to those deep halves. That has been a huge thing for teams this year, and something the Packers did more than anyone else last year was play cover 2. So if they're gonna make some switches with Micah Parsons, I just think playing a little more cover 2, maybe a little more press. When you have that cover 2, you give that jam and the reroute. Make Caleb Williams throw into make the turkey hole shot, throw down the seam where you've got Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker. Just something that I wanted to throw out there, Coach. Give me something.
Yep. Well, so here's one point I wanted to make about that. Bears, you said, they got a great running game, right? Yep. And you want to have your running game going against cover 2, right? So if you're going to play a lot of cover 2, expect a lot more runs, because now you don't have a safety coming down as the 8th player. So I would say that if we're going to give them a lot of cover 2 this week, I would expect them to run the ball, or try to run the ball on us, because you're short one player in the box.
And you don't have Evan Williams, who's great playing the run from depth.
He was really good at it.
We don't expect him to be there. Javon Bullard was the no doubt starting safety, right? Week 1 as a rookie, but has not played that position in a long time. Jacobs, anything on your mind?
Yeah, just I don't want to say talk is cheap. I don't want to say he does a lot of talking or anything like that, but there's one big circle that we talked about early in the show, and they said Parsons isn't going to be back, and that's Rashawn Gary. And Gary said after the game against the Broncos, he said, what do we got? 3 games left. Watch how the front plays. Okay, if you're going to put yourself out there like that, like if the Packers defense is going to be feeling good about itself going into the playoffs, Gary has to get to that 10 sack mark that seemed like a given when we were at the end of October, and now not so much. But if we are talking, I'm not Rashawn Gary's coach or anything like that, but if I'm DeMarcus Covington, that is the first guy I'm challenging in the meeting, is saying, okay, you said that. It's go time, man. You have to be the one who leads this ship into getting pressure on, and it's not going to be easy. It's Caleb Williams and Lamar Jackson. And then, JJ McCarthy, the last game of the season. But those two guys can move
last week, right? That's not nothing.
It's not nothing, no, but it's not Caleb Williams or Lamar Jackson either, I don't think. But that's the guy I'm circling. Is 52. You got to kind of go back to the player that you were, the first half of this season, the first half of last year. If we're going to get to where we want to go, you're the guy who's got to be the guy.
Hey, do you think that he warrants a chip in protection, Gary?
I know that he's gotten a lot of them over the last year plus. And I'll say that Gary does do a lot of things. Jeff Hafley's right when he says Gary does a lot of stuff that doesn't show up in the stat book. That was kind of a thing he did when he was in college too, was he ate up blocks for Chase Winovich, was his teammate at the time, to kind of go eat the quarterback. Now, Micah Parsons doesn't need help in order to do that, but I don't know if he does at this stage of his career, watching quarterbacks. And it's not just McCarthy. It was Bo Nix on Sunday. Bo Nix is not going to confuse anybody for Lamar Jackson. I do wonder, does he need to maybe remake his body a little bit, shed some weight, get leaner in certain spots to try and be more explosive. But yeah, I'd be interested to see how Chicago. I think what the way teams are going to respond is they're just going to do a lot less max protection and tight end stuff and get guys out into routes.
100%.
The thing is like if Roma Dunze is going to be out, and according to our pal Lauren Cox at Locked On Bears, Roma Dunze is going to be out. Luther Burden, a DMP 2 straight days. I know they didn't really practice on Tuesday. If he doesn't practice on Thursday, he's not going to play. And so if you don't have those guys, we haven't seen the Bears be a straight drop back team really all year. They 70% play action rate in the second half, Morley, against the Packers, and they were over 60% against the Browns. Like if this is going to be a 2 tight end play action shot play kind of game, I don't know. Like I feel like you're letting the Packers off the hook a little bit when they're dealing with some subpar play in the secondary.
Go catch it, X.
Yeah, sorry, I just got a notification on my mic. But so talking about like like your X factors, your whatever, you're in the game. I think there's one player on this defense that you look at them and say, we have seen you play at this level. We have seen you ascend to stardom really at this level, at this position, and that's Edgerrin Cooper. You look at what he was able to do as a rookie. I mean, this guy was the NFC Defensive Player of the Week twice as a rookie. At a certain point in his year, I think he had like a 25, like PFF had him charted at just like a ridiculous, pass rush win rate. When they would send him as a rookie, he would get home often. And I think with the addition of Micah Parsons, that kind of fell to the wayside where they're like, hey, we don't necessarily need you to do that this year, so we're not going to send you as much. Right. I think that changes. I think, in the offseason, before Micah, we talked about how, hey, I'm not surprised if Edgerrin Cooper leads the team in sacks this year because he has that type of impact in the passing game. And it's not coverage. That's not how he impacts the passing game. And it's not how he did as a rookie. It was getting after the quarterback and getting them to the ground. And I think if this team is going to get to where they want to go, Edgerrin Cooper is going to need to play at an all-pro level down the stretch. Can he? I don't know. Maybe. He's got the ability to do it. We've seen it in flashes. It needs to happen every single week. In the words of the late, great Kevin Green, it is time. It is time for Edgerrin Cooper to become a superstar in this league if this team wants to get to where they want to go.
It used to be in the Locked On Packers intro, Kevin Green saying it is time, a moment that still gives me chills. And if our pal Brandon Snide were here, he would say, he still believes in Edgerrin Cooper as a potential all-pro. He said before the season, he thought that Edge Cooper could be the best linebacker in the NFL as soon as this season. That has not happened.
Oh,
but look, there's still some opportunities here. Dorf, let's start with you. Give me a score prediction. Packers at Bears. Our friends at FanDuel have installed the Packers as 1.5-point favorites, though both the Packers and the Bears are minus odds on the money line. Got to lay some juice there, as I mentioned in the ad read. Give me a score.
Yeah, I think that this game I liken back to when Mike McDonald, Seattle's coach, was the defensive coordinator at Michigan, and they were playing Ohio State. He would talk about those 4-point plays, third downs in the red zone. They score a touchdown, it's 7. They don't, it's 3. You guys can do the math from there. I think this game comes down to plays like that because both teams are going to move the ball. Green Bay's defense has been not as good on a play-to-play, yardage, giving up bases, stuff like that, and they'll probably be less so with no Parsons and maybe no Evan Williams. When they get into the red zone, can you make Chicago kick field goals? And then when you yourself are on offense, can you score touchdowns? I think that's where Josh Jacobs certainly comes into play. If he's healthy and able to go, he has had a nose for the end zone since coming. I know at one point, I don't know if this is still true, but it was like 1 touchdown per game was his average since becoming a Packer. That may not be the case anymore, but he is a touchdown machine. I think Green Bay's got to find ways to score. I think they got to find ways to create explosives too, because you can certainly do that against Chicago's defense. And I really do. I think that Green Bay is just a better football team. I'm not going to use the fraud word or whatever when it comes to the Bears. I think they've proven at least to some degree that they're moving past that point. But I do think even without Parsons, the Packers are better. And so I think Green Bay wins 27-23. It's been a very long – I believe we were in the first Trump administration the last time the Packers lost at Soldier Field. It's been a while.
By the way, to your point, I just looked it up, Dorf. Josh Jacobs, as a Packer, has played 30 games. He has 28 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns. So we are at 1 per game, which is pretty remarkable. Morley, what do you got? Score prediction, keys to victory. Give it to me.
I think this Packers team is going to come in hot. I think they're going to watch last week's tape on top of losing the guys that they did. I think there are certain things that happened in that Denver game that they're not going to be pleased about. One thing that comes to mind that's been making the rounds is Jordan Love getting his head shoved into the ground and no one doing anything about it. I hope they played that on repeat in meetings all week and said, WTF, guys, like, what are we doing? How can we allow that to happen? I think that's embarrassing for them. I think they know that. I think this team has a lot of pride. I think they're really, really talented. And, you know, I know Vegas has them favored to win, but a lot of people don't. And I'm sure they feel disrespected. I'm sure they feel like people are not putting enough respect on their name, saying, hey, we are not just Micah. We are 11 guys out here, not just one. And so I think they're going to come out and play a really, really good game. I think this game is going to be over in the third quarter. I think they win 35-21.
Oh, let's go. Coach Jags, what's up? Give it to me.
That's a good one. I'll tell you this, though. 1 of 4 in the red zone last week. Take that off. I mean, the national conversation would be so much different. It'd be like Packers would be number 1 in the NFC. I mean, just take 2 of those or 1 of them, right? So Packers got to do a better job in the red zone this week. It's always going to be a black and blue game. Chicago, Green Bay was always a lot of fun. Always went down to Chicago. I don't remember ever losing down in Chicago ever down there. So, but I'm going to go with the Packers 31-28.
That's such a flex. I don't remember ever losing to Chicago down there. It didn't happen very many times, Coach. I know that. Brett Favre did not lose very many games to the Chicago Bears. Aaron Rodgers did not lose very many games to the Chicago Bears. I don't know about 35-21, but I've got this by a touchdown for the Packers in Chicago. I think to Morley's point, I think this is the perfect week to get the Chicago Bears because there's no time to mope. There's no time to be in your feelings and woe is me and, oh, Mike is done. And you take what happened on Sunday, the emotion of it, you put it behind you, and then you use it as fuel moving forward here. So I think that's what you get from this Green Bay Packers team. Thank you guys for being a part of this squad show. We'll be back with you after the game on Saturday night, 2 straight Saturday games. So cancel all your Saturday plans for the next 2 weeks because you've got Locked On Packers for a half an hour after the game on Saturday night. Then you've got 60 minutes with me, Coach Jags, Brandon Snide. I know Jacob will be watching as always because they, like you, want to stay Locked On Packers.
That was fun. Got it there.